think we're good. Think we're good. Now, we know everything's tickety-boo. I was thinking about the notion of innovation, and I was thinking of two thoughts of it, but it feels like, with all due respect to my own group of people, there's a lot of people in the religious community that maybe take almost an alarmist viewpoint of innovation, right? The man was not meant to meddle type of thing, which I don't think is entirely warranted. The notion would be that innovation never subverts reality. It only ever subverts our understanding of reality. It's certainly worth noting that there are, there will always be issues, secondary effects of any given innovation, probably. But as far as like subverting like the laws of nature, no, it's not. Like lighter than air flight was already possible. It's not like they broke reality in order to do it. They just discovered how to do it. They discovered a counteracting force. And beyond that, the notion would be that like if you're doing something that, I guess the idea would be that it's easy to argue with form, it's hard to argue with function. There are a few better ways to justify your existence than to do something that is undeniably useful for someone, right? And if innovations bring about good, who's to argue? Again, they don't subvert reality. They're not outside of the laws of nature. They were already possible. You just didn't know how they were possible yet. And if there is function to go along with a form, who's to argue? Beyond that, I was thinking that the notion, it's something that I think people maybe get off in the weeds about. I tend to think the notion of innovation is almost entirely based around the idea of life, the betterment of life, and the betterment of life experience. Like a rock doesn't become a better rock. It's as good as it's ever going to get, being a rock and all. No, progress, almost categorically, is about the betterment, in particular, of human life with regards to us, and the betterment of human experience. Because like that is kind of the epicenter of it all. Anyways, I have some stuff to look at here. I think a video by Dr. K and a video by The Dollhouse. That's mostly about internet drama. We'll see if we keep that one in. The last one I did by Dr. K had gotten, I'm not for sure if I'd actually put it out or if it had gotten taken down, but we'll see. I might try to do this again and see if it gets taken down. For the record, to whom it may concern, I am a fan of Dr. K. I'm not like a hater or whatever. I put weird thumbnails up, but yeah, I like the guy. Don't agree with him on everything, but interesting fellow in any case. Alright. Are we good? I think we're good, yeah. That's for our history thing later on. Yeah, okay, so this is The Dollhouse. Commentary YouTube, moralist bullying, and selective empathy. So she's kind of going over some very esoteric things, but I kind of wanted to look at it and just see what we see, I guess. Again, I'm not for sure if we'll keep this one, but in any case. It's good.
All right, who's ready to hear about one of my favorite commentary YouTube stories?
I am.
On October 22nd, 2020.
This was a thing back in the, like, I actually watched a lot of Gus Johnson stuff, but I think he had been dating Abilena Sabrina back in the day. And it was kind of, it's one of those things that up until that point, you kind of have a person who's got kind of a golden boy type of, like, no problems, no extreme events happening. It's just all hunky-dory. I think Mr. Beast was kind of in that same category, like where like up to a certain point, he just literally, there was, you couldn't touch him. He was just kind of worked maybe very hard to cultivate that image. For sure.
Sabrina Rios, who publicly goes by Abilena Sabrina, accused her ex, Gus Johnson, of emotionally abusing her while she had been recovering from an ectopic pregnancy that had nearly killed her. Basic.
I want to be careful about this one because I do want. It's one of those things where they say believe all women, but I don't know if I agree that entirely. But the notion would be that in the case of both women and children, compared to adults, that is, not women or not children necessarily compared to people or to men, but with regards to women and children, generally speaking, the relationships or the things involved are weighted quite heavily in favor of the more powerful, more self-aware. Never mind. I'll explain that some other time. So, but point would be, I'm generally okay with the balance of trust or being weighted in favor of women a little bit, because they're in more danger in relationships. Children are far more in danger in relationships. So the notion would be like, maybe not absolutely believe all victims, but it's worth hearing them out to some extent at least, because the cost is, I guess, I don't know. Again, maybe forget that part.
She discovered she was pregnant with his child and had moved to terminate the pregnancy.
I was gonna say though, like I said, I want to be careful about this, but it does feel like sometimes there are accusations brought forward that feel like they came directly from a female hive mind of women gassing each other up and saying, "Yes, queen, he spiritually assaulted you. He emotionally raped you." Okay, but and to be fair, that's I suppose valid, but it feels like in a lot of those cases, stuff ultimately just boils down to he was a jackass. Again, that's a valid statement, but as far as like a judge, jury, you have to have evidence of a more material, objective, higher caliber. Right? You have to say, like, this is what happened, not this is how it felt. And again, like, some of the evidence that women sometimes bring forward as accusations is kind of it's the product of a Yas Queen environment.
But her complaints of pain were met with skepticism by both Johnson and her doctors. Eventually, her left fallopian tube burst, leading her to need emergency surgery. When she called Johnson from the hospital, he declined to come visit her because he was out drinking with friends. While she was recovering from this near-death experience, Johnson did not show a lot of sympathy and would often accuse...
I heard that. Then he had kind of come out with like a little bit of a counter video later on that I don't know if it cleared up much of the stuff. Obviously, he admits that I think actually, I don't know what he admitted to. Like, he had stated that they had agreed for an abortion before it ever really happened. You guys know how I feel about abortions, but the notion would have been that they both agreed that if there was a unplanned pregnancy or something like that, there would be an abortion. Which I think she had kind of him-hawed about, or recanted, I guess, I don't know.
Accuse her of exaggerating her symptoms, even telling her at one point that anyone else would have left her. Johnson went silent on social media and then on December 3rd came out with a video entitled...
To be fair, his face is not helping him. He kind of almost looks like he looks like the type of person that in a movie would go into a restaurant with his significant other and start hitting her repeatedly or something, and then the protagonist stands up and beats the crap out of him or something.
The kid in gym class who always asked for an ice pack, making fun of a hypothetical child who over-exaggerates an injury for sympathy. Given what Rios had said, it wasn't difficult to think that he might have been taking a shot at her.
Okay, I think it feels a little bit better. I should be able to reach it. Ow! Crap! Now I gotta milk this one for the next month!
For what it's worth...
Does feel a little bit tone deaf, at the very least.
Johnson insists that this is not the case.
She has like a weird dead-eye psycho killer type of vibe to her.
In my opinion, he is either lying or stupid. Commentary YouTuber
Sounds about right.
Duncan Kastner evidently agreed with me, as seen in his video, The Gus Johnson Comeback Campaign. Kastner also covered another skit made by Johnson's younger brother, Sven. Basically, the skit is about a guy going through a serious medical emergency, only for the punchline to be that it's just a case of the Mondays. Dumb but harmless, right? No, according to Kastner. Kastner accused Johnson of making the video to mock Rios, citing Johnson's use of internal bleeding as one of his symptoms, which was also a symptom Rios had experienced.
But he specifically says bleeding internally, which is one of the main symptoms that could have killed Sabrina during her...
See, that's like... The problem I have with stuff like this is that people point out weird stuff with a lot of things. And the fact is, there will always, like, on any given day of the month, there's always weird stuff that's happening. It's more coincidence, meaning that the events coincide with one another, not that there's some sort of... I guess it doesn't... There might possibly be some sort of larger pattern there, and if you're seeing it, by all means follow it up, but it's not exactly a forced perspective. And I don't know if it's necessarily a perspective that everyone would be like, yes, that's what it is, that's what it is. It's like, you might want to find something more significant-ish, possibly.
Medical emergency. So,
for the record, I had actually... The way I'd found out about this video is I'd watched Nick DeOrio watching this video, and I kind of liked it. Nicholas DeOrio.
Hearing Sven say that, I don't know, it's not good. But again, there is plausible deniability. Again, it could be just an...
You know, when there's audio like this, it's the same reason probably why I can't stand ASMR. It just feels like it tickles your ears, and it's annoying as all get out. It's like, hey, nope, not for me.
Unfortunate coincidence. But the video goes on.
Please tell me my video doesn't sound like that. That would be... that would be a shame I would never live down.
911, what's your emergency?
Hi, my friend just passed out. He's on the floor right now. What should I do?
Does your friend have any medical conditions?
I don't know. Well, he was talking about how he had some internal bleeding. I think he mentioned like an ulcer, vomiting blood maybe.
Oh, sounds like he's got a case of the Mondays.
I'm going to play this clip of the voice on the phone again, and I want you to see if it sounds familiar.
911, what's your emergency? Oh, sounds like he's got a case of the Mondays.
I have replayed that audio over and over for myself and with people who are familiar with Gus's content, and we can all agree that that sounds exactly like Gus. This paired up with the constant references to internal bleeding make this video almost inseparable from the situation that's going on. This video strangely seems to be like the other, where it's trying to subtly comment on the situation somehow, but it's not being explicit, and it's really unclear about what exactly is the message of these. So why? Either Gus asked Sven to make this and he just said yes, or Sven made this video on his own without Gus and it's eerily similar, or Sven and Gus both worked together to make this video and add to their version of the story. I don't know. Either way does not make...
Was there anything he was saying there that involved them just being idiots, or like a non-toxic motivation involved? Because it feels like that there could very easily be just they're idiots, which I think she goes into, actually.
Any sense to me.
Maybe the reason why it doesn't make sense
God,
is because you're... I'm gonna be so
sorry.
honest with you guys.
I think she's... I think it's a pretty clean video. I'm pretty sure. That raccoon is adorable and yet haunting.
Is it technically plausible that Sven Johnson's video was a deliberate dig? Sure. But I think it's far more likely that internal bleeding is just widely recognized to be a very serious medical symptom, and it adds to the comedic absurdity of the skit for such a severe symptom to be shrugged off as just a case of the Mondays. And even if I did think that it was weird, I wouldn't publicly accuse him of mocking a woman's near-death experience. It's okay to keep things in the group chat sometimes, Duncan. Kastner also said this.
We can't act like what Gus did to Sabrina can simply be fixed by him growing, either publicly or privately. This is something that requires forgiveness from the person involved, Sabrina, who does not seem to want to forgive Gus.
Seems like this guy really values her opinion. Sure hope that doesn't change. Kastner's
Yeah.
insinuation resulted in Sven Johnson receiving a lot of harassment, which Johnson addressed in a Twitter video.
It's like, I've made this point before. I don't like the notion of. It feels like we're all the way back in like frontier times when you would just get a mob together and go hool haul a town or do a lynching or some crap. And it's not exactly the most conducive to finding the truth. As an alternative to that person just getting away scot-free, I guess, yeah, great. But generally speaking, it feels like it's best just to like let the courts decide. I think they're better suited to it. Get all the stories together and information under one roof and figure stuff out, hopefully. Ish. Okay, what is... Oh, but that's on her screen, not mine, I think.
Rios stepped in and said this: "Go check out Sven's newest sketch and leave a nice comment. There have been some people who have been sending hateful comments his way as a way to try to defend me somehow, and they are not. I do not want that. Please continue to support him." While Kastner was nice enough to link to Johnson's video in a community post and in an update video, he did not feel the need to mention what Rios had said. He also, notably, did not apologize to Johnson.
I do want to trust Sven's word that this was just an unfortunate coincidence, but either way,
That's nice. At least you're going that far.
I think it's good that that video was taken down so you can't accidentally interpret it a different way.
So the way...
I don't know how far I would go in that direction. It does feel like there will always, like, given the reach of videos, there will always be someone who takes it the wrong way or interprets it the wrong way as far as that's concerned. I generally think like a ratio of, like, if the overwhelming majority of people who watch the thing take it the correct way, now if you start getting a significant minority of people that start interpreting it the wrong way, maybe that's reason to check yourself or whatever. But yeah,
The way that Rios talks about Gus Johnson is enough for you to write him off as completely irredeemable. But the way that Rios talks about Sven Johnson isn't enough for you to take him at his word.
yeah. For the record, she makes a good point there. I was just completely distracted, and it's not necessarily a terrible thing, but her mouth seems so small. The other times I was watching this, I was listening to it, not actually watching it. So this is the first time I'm actually like, well, actually I was watching someone else watching it, so it was probably even on a smaller part of his screen. She does have a very strangely small mouth. That means you can't trust her, for the record.
Do you not think that Rios can tell when she's being made fun of? In the years since this happened, I've heard
She does seem to have very good timing.
a lot of people tried to defend Kastner by saying, well, Sven has gone on to collaborate with Gus, and I need to make it abundantly clear that my point is not that Sven Johnson is a perfect angel who's never done anything wrong in his entire life. My point is that in December of 2021, Kastner did not have enough information to make such a loaded claim, and I find the fact that he didn't seem to think that Rios' opinion mattered at all really weird. While I was writing this script, I actually went back and rewatched
It's a bit duplicitous.
Rios' original video about her ectopic pregnancy, and I was reminded of the fact that a very large part of her trauma had revolved around the idea of choice being taken away from her. She specifically...
So I think that's where Gus had come at it from, like, where the notion was they had agreed before that if there was an abortion going, or if there was an accidental pregnancy, they were going to abort the child. Again, I don't agree with that morally, but that was his side of it, I guess.
says, it feels like my body, my choice never got to apply here. And given that aspect, I can't help but feel like Kastner's performativity surrounding the matter was less so motivated by a genuine desire to support Rios so much as it was motivated by a desire to publicly condemn Gus Johnson and anyone who chose to...
I made that. It's probably ironic given that I'm stopping her point to make mine, but the notion would be that it's quite easy, I think, especially with people who are making content, myself included, to be so busy trying to make the point that you can't get the point. It's perhaps a common shortcoming to some extent. You're really excited about what you want to say, and just in conversation as well. I feel like it doesn't make for good conversation when you're not really listening to what the person is saying. You're trying to think ahead to what you're going to say in return or retaliate. All right.
Associate with him. And that really doesn't sit well with me. So up until this point, I had been subscribed to Kastner, but that whole drama left such a terrible taste in my mouth that I decided to unsubscribe. Like a couple months later, though, I got a little bit curious and I decided to check his Twitter, where I found this hilarious tweet.
A video leave your audience bubble is so fun because you get lovely comments like these.
Having a video leave your audience bubble is so fun because you get lovely comments like these. I want/need to fight you. This guy is such a fence sitter. LMAO, I don't think comedy is for you. Oh my god, leave the woman alone, Jesus. Are you angry because you look like the less attractive male version of Amy Schumer? And you know what? I think I'll give that to him. I'd rather be called the C word than compared to Amy Schumer. And the final...
I think she's some sort of Hollywood demagogue type person. Well, I guess I don't know. I don't know if, like, she just, maybe it's just that she's a really bad comedian. For the record, like, I think women can be funny, but I think quite often there's a quite large part of humor involves a degree of meanness that I think women sometimes lack. That's where I think women tend to very much fall back on, like, self-depreciating humor. Or they make fun of themselves, which I guess can work. It's just, again, I tend to think, like, a lot of good comedy involves, like, making fun of things. And it's a thing that is quite distinctively masculine, although not, like, exclusive to men. Anyways.
One says, "My friend, I love your videos, but please, for the love of God or whatever, buy a microphone. All the mouth clicks are distracting me from your great commentary." So, to review, the guy who publicly accused someone of mocking a woman's near-death experience and then refused to apologize when said woman said to stand down.
Mm-hmm.
The guy who literally criticizes people for a living can't handle being told to get a better microphone.
It's a little bit like, yeah, weird, asymmetrical, odd, wrong.
And that's YouTube, folks.
Hey.
YouTubers have a problem with selective empathy. That's my thesis. Look, we all have selective empathy. It's neither a good thing nor a bad thing.
Well, I've made a video about that, actually, but the notion would be that, yes, empathy is a good thing, I think, but it's best as a supplement to just a principled position of being good, of being moral, of being kind towards others on principle, and then within that, the people who you have the most empathy for are the people you know the best, the people you're the closest to. Are like it works as a great supplement to a more principled moral position, in my mind.
We have a limited amount of empathy, and it makes sense to be discerning about where to spend it. Some people take it a little bit too far, though.
Yeah, that's kind of the point. Like, if you use empathy as the sole basis for morality or for being good towards people, I think it leads to a degree of, like, two-faced hypocrisy, almost.
This video was not about Duncan Kastner, but I do have one more story that I'd like to share. In August of 2021, a guy went viral on TikTok after posting a video of him.
It's the CryptoZoo guy. I think Logan Paul is actually suing CoffeeZilla right now because CoffeeZilla, quote, defamed him or something. I guess I don't know if that's actually a quote, but yeah, I think Logan Paul is suing CoffeeZilla because he's claiming to be defamed by CoffeeZilla about the CryptoZoo, among other crypto scams that both he and his brother, I think CoffeeZilla covered a couple of those. I think Jake Paul had done some crypto scams as well. They've been involved for quite a while now, I think.
Himself talking about quitting his job and moving to Los Angeles to sneak backstage of a Logan Paul show and beg Paul for a job, only to get rejected.
Finger out. That feels like some sort of weird nervous tick.
Paul heard him out, tried to give him some advice, displayed some self-awareness,
head nodding,
and was overall pretty nice to him. A lot of people praised the way that Paul had responded.
You know what's another weird thing? Sorry, this is completely unrelated to her. But I do feel like there's a thing where people will do it where they'll say right a whole bunch when they're explaining a thing. You know, like, right, this is how it is, right? This is what that, right? They'll use it like a lot more intermittently than other stuff. And I feel like that almost might be a nervous thing that people get into. And now that I pointed it out, people will try to, no. That's one thing I'm a little bit, there's a point to be made that, like, okay, so if you point out a nervous tick, will people stop doing it? Will it no longer be a clean type of thing that allows you to read a person's inner feelings? Because you almost have to keep some of that stuff under your hat if it is a meaningful indicator of how people are feeling or whatever, like a subtext to their language or whatever. Not that I would want to, like, really, I guess maybe I would want to exploit it. I don't know. But I would like to think I wouldn't exploit it, but it's nice to be able to have those, indicators. So if you tell them, well, then it's no longer useful, is it? They'll figure out a way to stop themselves or fiddle with it somehow.
Kastner took issue with this reading.
There's been a lot of really good videos on YouTube already covering this story in more detail.
Sorry, I just want to point out she has an unsettling stare. Maybe it's the lighting as well. I don't know if that's intentional.
With this reading.
There's been a lot of really good videos on YouTube already covering this story in more detail than I am, and I highly recommend the ones I've watched from
Ring.
Voice Critical, Nick is Not Green, and Devin Nash. These are all great videos. I love these people. But all three of them agree and make a note that Logan Paul handled this situation well. And I don't think that's the full story. Yes, Logan handled it well in the sense that he didn't freak out and have a security team.
Is it a Walmart t-shirt? Literally just I don't know if I've ever seen, like, is that what this is? This looks like the half, or like a part of that Walmart star thingy.
Tased the guy to death, but we can't also pretend like this didn't happen because of Logan Paul's rhetoric. Both Logan and Jake Paul have built entire careers from telling people to chase their dreams, ignore that.
They seem thoroughly insufferable for the record, so.
The haters, don't give up, follow your heart, all this vague inspirational stuff. They parade their lavish and crazy lives in their
There's some people who can be like high energy, and maybe what Logan and Jake Paul at one point did was like appealing to children, but I find it insufferable. And maybe it's just because I'm old now or whatever.
Vlogs and tell you that they got it through determination and hard work. In truth, obviously, it's a little more complicated than that. But that's not news. We all know that. They didn't get their LA super mansions from just having more grit than other people. But that's the narrative that sells the best. I think a lot of people...
I don't know. There's a lot of things that goes into making people rich or whatever, and certainly luck is one of them, I guess. But not necessarily. I don't think that's necessarily the whole. I think some people are literally just more ambitious. Maybe the life they've led is conducive to that. So maybe that ultimately leads back to just some sort of, luck as well, or divine providence or something. But it feels like there's people who just literally are. They're almost what you'd call tidebreakers. They are people who are willing to do it themselves. And I think a lot of people just aren't willing to step out of line that much. And I think beyond that, a lot of people, they don't really have a vision for what they would do if they did have the money. So the question is, like, to whether they get it, like, why would they strive for it? They don't know what they're going to do with it. They don't have a vision of like, what they want to do. And consequently, they're not willing to sacrifice in order to get it. Because they don't have that, like, this and this and this. That very specific, like, this is what I would do with it if I had it. Like, why work towards it? All you would do is live a more lavish version of what you're living right now. And that's probably the other part of it. That, like, their standard of living just matches their income, basically. However much more they would get, they would still be probably in the same place in a physical sense. All right. Stupid ramble over with.
Who watch these videos believe.
For the record, financials is probably not my area of expertise. Not that I really have an area of expertise. But that's more not my area of expertise and some other stuff.
Them, and they want to chase their dreams, which I think is a good thing. So I don't think it's right to applaud Logan for handling this well without noting that he encouraged this guy to chase his dream.
Weird smile. I'm gonna point that out.
To applaud Logan for handling this well without noting that he encouraged this guy to chase his dream, and this just happened to be that dream.
Rich people tell their fans to follow their dreams, Duncan.
That's true. Especially ones that are like celebrities or child celebrities or something. There's a certain type of persona, I think, that goes with that. A lot of athletes, probably. A lot of child stars or whatever the crap.
This guy was an adult. Logan Paul did not hold a gun to his head and force him to ruin his own life.
She still has that. I wonder if she's... I'm assuming she's maybe trying that for the video a little bit. But she's kind of got a deadpan stare.
Kastner actually acknowledged, like...
It's an I'm about to kill you stare.
10 seconds before that most adults can tell that Logan is exaggerating. So I'm not quite sure what point he thinks that he's making.
In truth, obviously, it's a little more complicated than that. But that's not news.
I do think, especially on YouTube, that younger audience is probably one of the most, maybe the easiest to capture or whatever. It's like, if you look at Mr. Beast, like, I don't know if there's, point being, I don't know if he was catering to an adult audience. I'm not, like, taking away from what he, like, built. Like, obviously, it's a huge thing that he's done, and it's really impressive. But I have to think if he was appealing or trying to appeal to adults, I highly doubt if what he's doing would be nearly as effective.
I'll know that. I think a lot of people who watch these videos believe them.
So I do not find this as egregious as the Sven Johnson example.
Well, sorry. Going back to what I was saying before about, like, Mr. Beast, I do think he also plays the thumbnail game really well or whatever. And that's kind of one of the key things in... especially in children, but just in general. It feels like it's the most... like, people, I think, quite often, unless they're looking for something specific, like, they don't really read titles. They look at thumbnails. It's the most, like, lizard brain, dopamine-fueled type of part of the algorithm. So if you can figure out the thumbnail that will work for kids or whatever, that just clicks in their head for a second, it's getting your foot in the door to some extent, I think.
Or egregious at all, really. Kastner didn't say anything terribly out of pocket. We just kind of don't agree. This is not a Duncan Kastner sucks video. However, I do find his assessment of the situation to be very telling. If I place myself in Paul's shoes for a second, which I don't think Kastner did...
Lip bite.
If a guy comes up to me and says, "Hey, I just quit my job and moved to a new state where I don't know anyone. Please let me come work for you. It is my dream. I don't have anyone to support me."
Hold on. I was wrong. That is not a...
where I don't know anyone. Please let me come work for you. It is my dream. I don't have anyone...
That's not a Walmart thing. I'm kind of disappointed. A little bit.
to support me. I'm going to be thinking to myself, hey, if I say no, is this guy going to stab me? Because it kind of seems like if I say no...
Okay, is this guy here supposed to be security or something?
Oh, this guy is going to stab me. Granted, I'm not 6'2", I'm not 220 pounds, I'm not a man.
Okay. That seems... Maybe... Okay, so that's for a professional wrestling thing, but 220, I guess maybe it's just... It's not my weight, and I'm about the same height, I think. Someone just seems very, very skinny, but hey.
And I'm neither a boxer nor a wrestler, but when I asked my friend, she agreed that Paul had seemed kind of nervous. And why shouldn't he have been? In 2016, Christina Grimmie was murdered by an obsessive fan at a meet and greet. Paul absolutely had reason to think that this might end the same way. And even if he hadn't thought it would end that badly, influencers...
It is unfortunate. She has a really good voice, I think. She had actually done a movie with Olin Rogers back in the day, and I think that's where I had first seen her, actually. So I actually hadn't known her by music, but yeah, she'd done a movie with... I forgot it was what, like... I forgot what the name of it was. What the hell was it? I don't know.
get assaulted by fans all the time.
It's some rom-com about a guy who goes around, I guess, breaking up couples because their parents don't like the match. But then, yeah, I guess he falls in love with Christina Grimmie.
And given that element, Kastner's take does come off as a little bit victim blamey. And I don't think that that aspect ever even occurred to Kastner, because I don't think that he saw Paul's perspective as one that was worthy of trying to understand.
Well, to be fair, he also doesn't see Paul as a victim. It's kind of hard if you really don't like the fellow.
He allowed his, for the record, complete...
I think in that scenario, he was probably thinking of the guy who quit his job and went halfway across the country as a victim. But, yeah.
completely justified dislike of Logan Paul to cloud the way that he perceived the situation, and thus cloud the way that he commented on it. It's really, really easy to build people up as villains. Going off of the Sven Johnson example again, in my opinion, Kastner got it into his head that Johnson had cruelly mocked a victim of abuse for having a serious medical emergency. Why shouldn't he call Johnson out? And Kastner became so convinced of his correctness that he wouldn't listen to anyone else, even Rios herself. Who cares if Johnson gets harassed? He did something bad. He deserves it. You should absolutely care if someone tells me to buy a microphone, though. With this mindset comes the implicit idea...
It does... sorry. Nah, no, I'm not sorry. It's kind of a weird microphone. I don't know if I've ever seen one like that before, but it's a touch strange. Also, like, there's a whole genre of people who just literally hold the microphone, which I guess it is something. I guess if you want a certain setting, if you want to have a certain backdrop or whatever, that's I guess fine. But yeah, it's just a little bit strange in my mind. It's kind of like this constant point of tension in the video or something.
Idea that being treated with empathy is a privilege rather than a right, and that there is something that a person could possibly do that would strip them of that privilege. And to be clear, once...
To be fair, it is kind of a social norm, right? I don't know to what extent it's necessarily naturally occurring, but, you know, it's I guess dehumanization is a point to me. Like, it's... I don't know. I'm gonna think about that.
you've been stripped of that privilege, there is nothing in this world that you can do to get it back. Disclaimer?
I had recently done actually a short about this a little bit. So I think the notion of I was saying I had recently done a video about the N-word usage at the BAFTA or whatever, and I mentioned that I really don't like it. At least I would say I don't like it as a form of address, and I think the thing, I guess I'd asked what people thought the N-word meant, right? And it feels like the N-word, along with a whole host of other racial slurs, they're I don't even know if they necessarily quote-unquote mean something bad. Like, if you looked up the dictionary definitions of these words, you wouldn't be able to necessarily find anything beyond the fact that they're just offensive. They're probably xenonyms, generally speaking, but they're used by the most malicious people, I think, to create a subhuman category, right? A category of human that is less human than the rest of humanity. And in my mind, you could actually draw parallels between that and like the usage of Nazi these days, where people are basically saying, oh, they're Nazis, so it's okay to do blank thing because they're, again, you're creating this type of subhuman class that it's okay to do anything to because they're this person, they're this way or whatever. In my mind, it's not generally, nothing good can come from it, put it that way.
I'm coming at this as a viewer, not as...
Again, I don't know if I would say that you're owed human rights. It does feel like that's very much a human construct, and it's good, it's useful, generally speaking, but entitled to, it's a little bit harder to say.
As a historian, I understand that commentary YouTube existed long before 2017, and I understand there are many, many pockets of commentary YouTube that don't have anything to do with the people I'm about to talk about. However, I do think that the post-Vine exodus was deeply, deeply influential in the way that commentary is nowadays, and especially like popular commentary, so I'm going to be starting there. In 2017, the app Vine shut down, causing many creators who'd become popular.
Honestly, I never actually went on the app Vine. I would just watch Vines on YouTube. I think David Lopez, Thomas Sanders were a couple of people that I was really into back in the day. I don't really ever remember getting into watching like the Paul brothers. I think that's kind of where they got their start.
there to flock to YouTube, like the Paul brothers, Lele Pons, Peaks, and Hannah Stocking. These people's videos were weird. They were weird. They were very obviously marketed towards kids, but they were also weirdly sexualized and often were just a commercial for kids to buy their merch or whatever other product they were shilling.
This is going to be our secret weapon, CoverGirl Total Tease Mascara. I'm going to give you a makeover you will not forget. This mascara is going to give you full, long...
Alright, what section is this? You know what? I'm gonna leave the guys to watch the rest of that if you like. Yeah, commentary, YouTube, moralistic bullying, and selective empathy by The Dollhouse. I believe this is actually the first video she's done, at least on this profile. I heard the notion that she might have, I guess maybe she's not exactly new, maybe she had other like profiles or something, I don't know. Anyways, you go check that out if you like. Alright.
In the world today.
How Being a Victim Ruined Your Life by Healthy Gamer GG, aka Dr. K, aka the Indian Raja. Sorry. That's not racist. I'm calling him a king, okay? It's not racist if it's positive, right? Now, that's actually an interesting point. Like, technically, we tend to think of racism as being just like a negative whatever, but it feels like, at least back in the day, the notion was that being racist was treating people differently. Whether it was good or bad, you're singling them out in a way that's unique to their race, so that's kind of racist, whether it's good or bad, right? Wish we could kind of get back to that.
In the world today, there are a lot of people who make their suffering, their problems, a part of their personality. And the title of today's stream, or
Amen.
This lecture is "Your Problems Aren't Your Personality." I think this is a really great example of how, like, there's a disconnect between, you know...
I think there's a point to be willing to accept who you are as a person, and to some extent, like, that does involve, like, your issues or shortcomings as well as your good parts, but finding your identity in the issues that you have, maybe not the best idea.
You know, some of our content team and what I'm about to say.
Well, do you know what's actually the worst part these days? Like, there's a certain sect of humanity that seems necessary to parade their problems or their issues or their disorders around like a prize show pony. Hello, I'm so-and-so, autistic, bisexual, BIPOC, whatever thingy. Yeah, like, it's just... Yeah, sure. Didn't need to know any of that. Just, I don't know if, like, that's the, I don't know. It feels like the weirdest way for you to start a relationship with someone is that they basically are just, I don't know. It just feels odd. Feels weird. Feels overzealous and like they're kind of preempting being a jackass maybe or something like that. This is why I'm this way. That's kind of one of the reasons, actually, I don't really want to get diagnosed with whatever, because I imagine there's probably something that I could, get diagnosed with. But why would you want to justify mediocre behavior on your own part? Why wouldn't you want to, strive to be better?
Because
so for the record, I do feel like I would be the type of person who would. I tend to be a little bit of a narcoleptic. What's the word for one who like always is imagining themselves as having diseases? Dang it all.
Because what we're going to talk about today is how some people's problems become their personality. So I know the title is like "Your Problems Aren't a Personality," but actually the really crazy thing, so if you look at the science of the tendency for interpersonal victimhood, what you discover is there is like a personality construct that is the tendency for interpersonal victimhood. So actually the really crazy thing is that it is a normal human mechanism to turn your problems into your personality. And I think this tweet is really great because it says, we've become too articulate about our suffering and too inarticulate about our strength. The more elegantly we describe our wounds, the harder it becomes to leave them behind.
And I think that is kind of the key there. Like, people very much, maybe it's just the ethos of the era, that people want, again, at least people in a very specific sect, they'll just begin conversations with, hey, I'm so-and-so, and this is whatever, and they're very, very eager to say, this is my quest, this is my problem, this is my glitch, and it's probably going to be your problem now. That's why I'm mentioning it, so I can do whatever I want and you can't judge me or some crap. I guess maybe that's it. That's an ungenerous take on it, but it does feel like that can be the tendency. That people want you to know that they have this issue so that, yeah, it maybe almost is conducive to the notion of them not trying as hard. That's I guess what I want to like, because
when a struggle becomes part of your identity, overcoming it feels like a betrayal of who you are. And I would wholeheartedly agree with this tweet. And not only do I
I guess I would tend to think that there is, or was in the very near past, of like very much a reward mechanism for being weak or for seeming to be weak, at the victim Olympics or whatever, intersectionality and crap.
Wholeheartedly agree with it. We're going to show you all some fascinating research about
there was a study I'd mentioned, I think, a while back. It was the notion that they had taken a I don't know if they went into an orphanage or something, and the notion, I don't know if it was actually a study per se, but they discovered that with regards to babies, when there was no one to care for them, right, and they would cry and cry and cry and no one would come, eventually the babies would literally just stop crying because they knew no one was coming. It's a thing you would just, I assume, just figure out that, hey, and no one's coming, it's not working, whatever I'm doing isn't working. So yeah, they would just literally stop crying. And it feels like there is that notion that when I see a person whining, I say whining, when I see a person waxing eloquent on the issues they have and the disorders that are a part of their personality, there's a part of me that thinks, okay, it can't be that bad off because you're talking about it and people are probably listening, otherwise you wouldn't talk about it. I tend to think the people who are the worst off, they're probably not going to talk that much about it because they know there's no one coming to help them. They know the people that are truly disenfranchised, they're not expecting a handout from people because they haven't been able to get that forever, right? So they're very much the type of self-made, I'll do it myself, okay? Buckle down and roll up your sleeves and gird up your loins.
How and why this happens, okay? So the first bit of research that I'm going to talk to you all about is not something I'm going to show you all a paper about, because sometimes in med school you just like learn these things and they get banked away. So I remember learning about a really interesting study where they measured pain scores like in the ICU. So basically a nurse comes in every hour and asks,
how do you even pain scores?
You, how's your pain? And the more times that someone asks you how your pain is, the more pain you actually feel, right? So I remember walking away from
psychosomatic. Yes, I did it. I found it. I'm awesome.
This study sort of thinking or learning this in med school and sort of thinking, like realizing, okay, when you continually ask someone like, how's your nausea? How's your nausea? How's your nausea? How's your nausea? The more time that a patient's mind spends on an issue, the worse that issue gets. So there are
It's kind of like that notion of like when you're in a really high place, maybe don't look down because your brain type, I don't know, maybe it's not fit to deal with that. Oh, no. Wait a minute. I don't know if that's at all like that.
Multiple studies that show that ruminating about the negative things in your life actually exacerbate whatever you're ruminating about, right? So the more time that I spend thinking about something, the worse that thing becomes. And the most counterintuitive example of this is why people who go through traumatic experiences are not traumatized. One of the hardest things that I learned as a psychiatrist is that many people who go through a traumatic experience like just kind of leave it behind them and like don't need to process it much. I know it sounds really insane, but the most...
It's strange. Like, I suppose like traumatic might be to some extent subjective to the person experiencing it. Maybe their whole life experience will govern to some extent like what they perceive as being normal, and reality trains everyone differently as to what is normal and what is strange, I suppose.
Confusing thing for many people, for example, who are sexual assault survivors, is how little it bothers them. I'm not saying that it's okay to do or things like that. I'm saying that there's actually a bunch of research that shows that, 50% or more of people, I'm a bit rusty on the numbers, when they go through a negative experience will sort of like have some period of like negativity around it, and then they'll actually be okay. But if we sort of
See, like I was saying before, there might be a degree of that has to do with like prior experience, that they've already processed that type of thing, or that they were raised in an environment that normalized that thing in their mind. I could be wrong about that. Maybe there's some other factors involved.
sort of look at it, right, like bad stuff happens to people all the time. But as we become more focused on it, as we become ruminating on it, as it becomes a part of, as we spend more time on it, it does actually become a part of our identity. And once it becomes a part of identity, then something really scary happens, because now that this suffering becomes a part of my identity, this is who I am, so I can't let go of that suffering. And this is actually exactly what happens. The really weird thing is that suffering turning into my identity is actually like a completely normal and arguably even healthy thing, okay? So this is an article on the journey of sense-making and identity construction in the aftermath of trauma. So peer support as a vehicle of co-construction. So this paper is...
So I tend to think one of the things that really helps you get through really hard times is a sense of purpose in life, and that's one of the things I'm very grateful to my religion for, is it does that in a really big way. It gives you this sense of striving for something greater than yourself, giving your life to something that is beyond who you are. It's kind of like making Horcruxes or something, like almost like a healthy sense of meta identity, maybe, like dedicating yourself to something that's external to who you are. It's a way of keeping you a little bit more stable, perhaps.
Specifically looking at a study of like, peer support and people sort of getting together and talking about the experience of their trauma.
For the record, familial bonds is probably a huge part of that as well. I think it can be a really big part of that. Like people getting married, having kids. All the more shame that people aren't doing it as much these days.
And when they talk about it together, they develop a sense of identity. And this is a key thing. We talk about this a lot in Dr. K's Guide to Trauma.
See, I'm not saying it couldn't have any positive effects of like talking about it, but I hate the notion that it becomes like a part of who you are. Like the idea that this becomes this flaw of yours becomes a part of like, I don't know.
About how, like, if you look at trauma, what trauma does is it shakes your sense of identity, right? I used to be this kind of person, and then I get traumatized, and now I don't know who I am. So there is a systematic process of reconstructing your identity in a healthy way that we lay out in Dr. K's Guide to Trauma, okay?
So that's what I was thinking. The notion is that if you make this thing a part of your identity, it feels like it might solidify that thing as a problem. It's one of the issues I have with the notion of like describing myself too much, either in person or like maybe online, is that, okay, so I'm saying this is who I am, this is what I am. What if I change? Do I feel obligated to remain this thing now a little bit more so? I hate that notion in any case.
Okay, so this can be a healthy part of trauma recovery. The problem is that sometimes when we experience a traumatic event,
and maybe there's a way around that, for the record,
and if we don't steer that narrative identity construction in the right way, the identity that we are left with is as someone who has been traumatized.
Yeah, it feels like that type of broken and then healed in a twisted fashion, I think, is very hard to fix. Like if they heal in the wrong way, it can the notion would be that a dysfunctional system is far more dangerous than an actually destroyed system. So like if people get broken and then heal in the wrong way, that's, I think, maybe where you would tend to get your serial killers, your people who are full on morally insane. Like like on some level there's something ain't right upstairs.
been screwed in life. I haven't dated anyone in high school or college. Therefore, I am destined to be alone, right? I'm someone who is lazy. I'm fundamentally lazy and undisciplined. I had this failure, I had this failure, I had this failure, and now I am a loser. These negative...
See, and again, well, maybe there's a degree of like external reinforcement as well, but I hate that notion of I describe myself as blank, and now that's kind of locked in place.
experiences solidify into a negative sense of identity.
Hey y'all, if you're interested in applying some of the principles that we share to actually create change in your life, check out Dr. K's Guide to Mental Health.
So this is a guide that explores this process. How does experience shape us as human beings? Trauma is all about walling off or suppressing things that are overwhelming. They cannot control their emotions, so their emotions control them.
So check out the link in the bio and start your journey today.
Now, here's what this kind of practically looks like, okay? Or why this becomes a real problem, okay? I like this because when we kind of go back to this, when a struggle becomes a part of your identity, overcoming it feels like a betrayal of who you are, right? So I wouldn't necessarily use the word betrayal, but I think that when I work with patients who have developed an identity of victimhood, which if we sort of...
Dang it. That'll do.
Look at this, victimhood as an identity. In the present research, we introduce a conceptualization of the tendency for interpersonal victimhood, which we define as an enduring feeling that the self is a victim across different kinds of interpersonal relationships. So the findings highlight the importance of understanding, conceptualizing, and empirically testing TIV, and suggest that victimhood is a stable and meaningful personality tendency, okay?
Yeah. And there's a thing, too, like, people just, I think they tend to do what works. And it feels like for a very long time, our societies have rewarded people who come across as victimhoods or pitiable or whatever. So, like, I guess I don't know if I can really blame people for leaning into it a little bit. Feels like, at least in aggregate, that would be kind of a strategy for some people.
Okay, so here's what this practically looks like. Some people develop an identity based around their suffering. Now, here's the big problem with that. Once you develop an identity as a victim, what this study shows and other studies that sort of explore it will show is that once I am a victim, no matter where I go, that is who I am. Right? So like you may have encountered some of these people in life. You could be one of these people in life where like they're a victim like at Thanksgiving, they're a victim at their job. And it's really fascinating because once you tunnel down into the research of this.
So I think what he's saying is really true here. There's actually there's a short video by the guy who created the Boondocks, which I've never actually watched, but it's an interesting one. He's actually talking about kind of the moral capital that has been used up quite greedily by the black community, and that was like a while back where he was talking about that. So I think it was quite insightful, especially for the time. But this notion that they had used up they had operated up until that point from a position of kind of moral currency. They had that because of slavery, because of whatever. For the record, the Jews might be kind of the same situation because of World War II. People have always seen them as this type of victimized group, and it's not necessarily, I think, incorrect perhaps to view them as such. I mean, obviously those things did happen, but one, I think there should be an expiration date at some point, and you shouldn't, like, the question is, to what extent do you use that thing back there to justify what they're doing now? At what point do you start to reassert the notion of personal agency, of whatever, and how far would you be willing to go? Sorry, this is completely diversion. There was literally a dude recently, I'm thinking he was down south somewhere, who I think a couple of boys had sexually assaulted, ostensibly, allegedly, whatever, a girl. And he starts to bring up racial undertones to this whole thing. And like there's a part of me that's like, I'm not even vaguely surprised at this. Of course, this was the next step. The next step, I guess, is pedophilia. I mean, yeah, sure, he raped that young boy / young girl, but think about the context, the historical trauma that he's been like. Really, is there anything you wouldn't justify that? Sorry, where was I going with this? There's that notion of moral currency that the guy was talking about. And it feels like pity is never, especially when it's unwarranted, when it's abused by people who don't really merit it. And for the record, I think it's a subset probably of black people / Jewish / whatever category you care to name. Or there's, whatever minority sect you want to name, where you have people who see that they are perceived a certain way by society at large, and they choose to abuse that goodwill that society at large has towards them because of whatever blank thing that happened, because they're disenfranchised, because of historical event, because of whatever. And they kind of ruin it for everyone else. And it is a finite thing. People will only feel bad for you for so long if you're milking a situation like that. Wow, that was long and very incoherent necessarily, but very rabbit hole-y. Rabbit trail? Bunny trail. It was a bunny trail.
There are particular things that happen to these people. So they are particularly like raw in terms of interpersonal interactions. They see themselves as the victim in interpersonal interactions. And then the bigger problem is that once this becomes part of your identity, once you have a traumatic formation of a maladaptive identity, then it becomes really hard to let go of.
Maladaptive. I like that one. Malediction. That's one I like. It's like a benediction, only bad.
Okay, so I'll give you all an example. I was working with someone who was in their mid-30s who had something called double depression. So when we look at
sounds bad. It's like depression, but double.
Depression. This is multiple clinical entities. Okay.
Oh, wait, is it like you're being depressed about being depressed or something?
So one is something called major depressive disorder. Okay. This is where there are episodic periods. So there are episodes of persistently low mood, anhedonia, which is the inability to experience
Anhedonia? He's throwing all sorts of words around.
Pleasure, low energy, low motivation, sometimes suicidal thinking, impaired sleep, all this kind of stuff. The key thing about major depressive disorder is that it's episodic. It comes and goes. So the longest it tends to last is about 12 months. The other interesting thing about MDD is that it tends to resolve. So MDD is when you have like a period of time, maybe like up to a year, where you had like a really crappy year that was hard for you. It can be triggered by life circumstances like losing your job or losing a loved one or a breakup or something like that. But then the way we know someone has MDD, and this all we explained in Dr. K's Guide to Depression, the way that you know if you have MDD, or the way that a clinician tells is that let's say you have a breakup, and we would expect after a breakup you're sad for a certain amount of time, okay? But if the sadness is persistent beyond the breakup, what we would expect for the breakup period, right? So after you get fired from a job, you're really sad, you're bummed out, you apply for other jobs, right? You pull yourself out of it, you apply for other jobs, you find another job. But even when you go into work, you're incredibly like unmotivated, very low energy. Even though you have fixed the problem, the symptoms persist. This is how we separate out an appropriate.
So it's not necessarily the severity, but it's more duration.
Appropriate negative reaction. So in the Guide to Depression, I talk about these as congruent depression from a persistent clinical clinical episode which lasts beyond the stressor. Okay, but then there's
so is he? I don't know if he's talking about double depression right now.
Another kind of depression called dysthymia. So this is a very dysthymia. Like the clinical construct behind this is like kind of variable. It's an older concept from psychiatry that we've sort of turned into something else. But I like this concept of dysthymia. So dysthymia is a persistent depressive state that is usually not as severe as major depressive disorder. So you're kind of sad for like 15 years at a stretch. And some
that's strange.
Really unlucky people have both. So I'm persistently sad for a very long time, and I have episodes.
Oh, okay, so it's 2 types of depression simultaneously. Okay, that makes sense. Anyways, you guys can go check this out if you like. Dr. K, How Being a Victim Ruined Your Life. Alright, moving on. We're going to look up ninjas. I'd actually searched shinobi, but I guess it's the same. It comes off as ninja. Racists. Alright, a second. Alright. A ninja. Japanese. Shinobi no Mano. Shinobi no Mano. Yeah. So I'm getting into this. Was a spy, an infiltrator in pre-modern Japan. Antecedents may existed as early as the 12th century. Current legends to the contrary. Current legends to the contrary, there's no evidence that they were assassins. Huh. So they weren't really actually. I think that's probably quite often depicted. In the unrest of the Sengoku period in Japanese history, in which civil wars and social upheaval took place almost continuously in the 15th and 16th centuries, Jisamurai? I don't know, were lower-ranking provincial samurai that emerged in 15th century Japan. Muromachi period. The definition was rather broad. Landholding military aristocracy as well as independent peasant farmers. They alternated between warfare and using their relative... Alright. Peasant warriors in the Iga province and the adjacent... In the unrest of the Sengoku period, the Jisamurai, peasant warriors in the Iga period and the adjacent Koka, formed the Iki revolts or the leagues as a means of self-defense. They became known for their military activities in the nearby regions and sold their services as mercenaries and spies. Following the Tokugawa shogunate in the 17th century, the ninja faded into obscurity. I don't know if I want to know the etymology. Alright. Despite many popular folk tales, historical accounts of ninja are scarce. The social origin of the ninja is seen as the reason they agreed to operate in secret, trading their services for money without honor and glory. The first dubbed ninja was a man named Otomono Sahito? I don't know. Though historical evidence of its existence is scarce. However, some ninjutsu books described specifically what tactic ninjas had used to fight, and the scenarios in which a ninja might find themselves can be deduced from those tactics. For example, in the manuscript of Volume 2 of the Karin Sayo, which is the original book of the... What the Harry? There are 48 points of ninja fighting techniques, such as how to make makibishi from bamboo. What? Okay, what is this? Okay. Caltrap. Interesting. Version of the caltrap. A tool. This sharp spike object that was used in feudal Japan to slow down pursuers. Also used in defensive samurai fortifications. All right. From bamboo, how to make footwear that made no sound. Fighting techniques when surrounded by many enemies. Precautions when using swords at night. And how to listen to small sounds. Nine-hand seals, a system of mudras associated mantras consisting of 9 syllables. The mantras are referred to as kuji, which sounds vaguely obscene, because there's another English word that's obscene that sounds the same. Alright, which translates as 9 characters. Guji. I don't know, they'll say it that way. Sounds weird. The syllables used in Guji are numerous, especially within Japanese esoteric something. How to listen to small sounds, Kujikira, that prevent guard dogs from barking, and so on. The title ninja has sometimes been attributed retrospectively to the semi-legendary 2nd century prince Yamato Takeru. The Prince Shotoku, who lived from 574 to 622 AD, was believed to have employed a ninja spy named Otomo Sahito. In the Kojiki, a young Yamato Takeru disguised himself as a charming maiden. What the Harry? Dude! As a charming maiden and assassinated 2 chiefs of the Kumaso people. However, these records take place at a very early stage of Japanese history, and they are unlikely to be connected with the shinobi a later account. The first recorded use of espionage was under the employment of Prince Shotoku in the 16th century. Such tactics were considered unsavory even in early times when, according to the 10th century's Shomonki, the boy spy Hatsetsukabe for the love was killed for spying against the insurgent. Blah, 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 blah. The history of the ninjutsu schools recorded around the 12th century when Daisuke Togakure, and Kandoshi formalized the teaching of Chinese and native Japanese guerrilla tactics, to which was as counterculture of the time. Hold on. When blah 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 and blah 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 formalized the teaching of Chinese and native Japanese guerrilla tactics, to which was counterculture at the time. As samurai, Datsuke lost his hand and title after being defeated in a regional conflict, refusing to commit seppuku. Datsuke traveled to the mountains of southwest Honshu. There he met Doshi, a Chinese warrior monk. Datsuke abandoned his way of Bushido. And worked with Doshi to formalize guerrilla art of war called ninjutsu. Datsuke's descendants founded the first ninja ryu, or ninja school. Later in the 14th century, war chronicles contain many reference to the shinobi credited the destruction of the castle by fire to an unnamed but highly skilled shinobi. It was not until the 15th century that spies were especially trained for their purpose. It was around this time that the word shinobi appeared to define and clearly identify ninjas as a secretive group of agents. Evidence for this can be seen in the historical documents which began to refer to stealthy soldiers as shinobi during the Sengoku period. Later manuals regarding espionage are often grounded in Chinese military strategy, quoting works such as The Art of War by Sun Tzu. By the Sengoku period, the shinobi had several roles, including the spy, Kansho, the scout, Taisatsu, surprise attacker, Kishu, and aggregator, Konran. The ninja families were organized into larger guilds, each with their own territories. A system of rank existed. A jonin, upper person, was a high rank representing a group and hiring out mercenaries. This is followed by the shunin, middle person, assistant to the jonin, and the bottom was genin, lower person. Field agents drawn from the lower class and assigned to carry out actual missions. The Iga and Koga clans were the Jizamurai families living in the province of Iga, modern Mie Prefecture. Mie Prefecture and the adjacent region of Koga, later written as Koga. Alright. Named after a village in what is now Shiga Prefecture. From these regions, villagers devoted to the training of the ninja first appeared. The remoteness and inaccessibility of the surrounding mountains in Iga may have had a role in the ninja's secretive development. The chronicles of Kogami Furoku, I don't know, writes of the two clans' origins. There was a retainer of the family of Kawa of Iga, the preeminent skill in shinobi, and consequently for generations the name of the people from Iga became established. Another tradition grew in Koga. Likewise, a supplement to a record of the Ashikaga shogunate confirms the same Iga origin. Inside the camp at Magari of the shogun were shinobi whose names were famous throughout the land. When the Yoshihisa attacked Roku, the family of who served him at Magari earned considerable merit as shinobi in front of the great army of the shogun. Since then, successive generations of Iga men have been admitted. This is the origin of the fame of the men of Iga. Those professional ninjas were actively hired by daimyos between 1485 and 1581. Specifically, the Iga professionals were sought after for their skill at siege warfare, or shinrotori, which include night attacks and ambush. Oh, stupid. It's supposed to be a sneeze. Alright. By the 1460s, the leading families in the region had established the de facto independence from their shugo. The Koka Iki persisted until 1574, when it was forced to become a vassal of Oda Nobunaga. The Iga Iki continued in 1581, when Nobunaga invaded Iga province and wiped out the organized clans. Survivors were forced to flee, some to the mountains of Ki, but others arrived before Tokugawa Ieyasu, where they were well treated. Some former Iga clan members, including Hattori Hanzo, would later serve as Tokugawa's bodyguards. Prior to the conquest of Koka, the two confederacies worked in alliance together. At an approximate date of 1560, the alliance between Iga and Koka was formalized in constitutional document. Following the Battle of Tokugawa employed a group of 80 Koga ninja, led by Tomosuke Sada, and they were tasked to raid an outpost, the Imagawa clan. The account of this assault is given in the Mikawa Gofudoki, where it was written that the Koga ninja infiltrated the castle, set fire to its towers, and killed the Castellan constable. I think I'd heard that word before. The governor of a castle in medieval Europe and surrounding territory was referred to as the Castellan. Alright. Along with 200 of the garrison. Kind of crazy. Alright, that's enough of that. Let's get to the gaming part. we're good. We're good. All right. No, not a new game. Where's my old game? Many a tear had to fall. Alright, let's get a move on. It's like we're flying, but maybe we're dying. Good on food? Not technically, no. Let's put one more here. Donk. Alright, now let's find some wood in a not weird way. Okay, get your minds to the gutter. Go find. I need to make some actual repair kits at some time here. Now, yoink. Alright, let's get another stone cutter going. Alright, now. There we go. A bit of a close shave. Can I actually go a little bit further this way? No, let's go here. Alright. Alright, now. Okay, that's my life, not that. We're good. Very good, relatively speaking. Still not. Alright, let's do overview. See if we can upgrade any of this crap. Better. Now. Wait a minute. Wood Warper. Why in the hell am I not using this? Stupid. I suppose there's another wood or a stone cutter anywhere. Alright, now, actually I want to there's supposed to be crystal in this map, too. Alright, I think we're good on that front. Now, probably want some defenses here at some point. Good for now. See, at some point, I think you unlock an anchor or something. Or am I already supposed to have that? All trap. Oh, there we go. Floating device. Nice. Nice, nice, nice. That's it. It is actually about appropriate. Right? I think it should be. A little bit ahead, a little bit behind. Good for now, anyways. Yep. Good. Time to do a little bit of exploring in this case. Oh, blimey. Go towers. course. Ready, stick. Oh, got me. Think. Wait a minute. Wrong. Moron. Alright, now. Yeah, got me. Feels like we're flying, but maybe dying. I should actually improve stuff. Alright, at some point. Alright. I'm with the bloody. They better be coming through this way. They better be coming through this way. Oh, goodness gracious. Production speed, BBB. Why not? Alright. How dare you, sir? So, Featherstone. Crystal, I need crystal. Jackal. It's a jackal. Jackal. Jackal? That's what I actually want. What is this? Do I have to craft those first? was, I suppose, a worthwhile endeavor. I think, anyways. If I can do some upgrading. I still haven't found crystal. Nice. Floating device. Hoorah. Alright. Oh, right. I was gonna... I think I'm actually gonna have to... Wait a minute. Alright, now. Alright. That. I think that's good. Hopefully be doing some of that stuff. I get a couple more stuff before I can do anything like that. Alright. Let's see. This. Nice. Now, where do you want to put it? Nope. 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 Maybe? It feels like it might be the best place right here. Right. About. Yeah. Crystal. There we go. There's the crystal. Now. Oh, blimey. Enough of this BS. Come on. No more tax. Great, good, wonderful. Now. Now, do I have some sort of refiner for this stuff? Or is it just a stone cutter thing? I assume maybe it's just a stone cutter. Stick this up here about. Maybe you have, like, would you have to upgrade the stone cutter so it can do featherstone or crystal or whatever? Check with this one. Crushed featherstone. Feather crystal. Okay, so this can do feather crystal, but I think only this one probably. Alright. Oh, man. Wait. So it needs stone and this other stuff. Okay. Gotcha. Like, damn, what the? Alright. So it's kind of like the tar thing only. Alright. Let's move this back over to where it was. And then like so. And then we will destroy this thingy. Alright. Huzzah. Actually, let's make this one last. And then I want to get. Alright. Oh, blimey. I do believe we're about to be attacked. Flux? Alright. There we go. Maybe I should work on some of that stuff here. More flux producers. Oh, nice. Grades. Spike Fist 2, Spike Fist 3, reinforcements. I should do some of that stuff. Makeshift repair kit. Starwood repairs. Remote surge. Remote. I don't know what the area is this stuff. Deal damage to all of them around the curve. Interesting. Interesting. Alright. Let's see. Alright. So, maybe one of the first things I want to do, though, is get myself up to capacity, if possible. Actually, I want flux. Flux. Yeah. Sorry. What I want to do is get those things upgraded. Almost. So am I actually producing featherstone now? crystal. Well, that's what we need, right? Need crystal and raw featherstone. Oh, hold on. I need an upgrade. Do I need an upgrade? Alright. Does that work now? Huzzah! There we go. There we go. And let's maybe do away with this one. And also, we're gonna need to... Stupid. Yeah, I think we're gonna have to destroy this one because I feel like it's really taking all the stuff. Alright, so hopefully then we'll be actually producing some of this stuff. Somewhere over here. Here. Makeshift repair kits. Craft. Oh, so you have to have the first one first. Alright, well, that makes sense, I guess. Actually, almost made. Movement speed. How does it do movement speed? Light starwood reinforcements. I thought it would have done more like in the way of... We should start closing off some of these things. Alright, defense. Go there. What the? Here, alright. What was it? G? There we go. There we go. Yep. Blimey, alright. Flux. Need more flux. Alright, still good as far as electricity. And we have enough to upgrade a couple of these things. Tell me what you want, what you really want. I'll tell you what I want, what I really, really want. Alright, I have, I think, enough. electricity. 16s, I think we're all good in population for the moment. Could do away with that stuff there, just because it don't need it. Workshop. Then your fingers touched my silent heart. Is a many splendid thing. Do I have that one at the top tapped? This is where the majority of the stuff is coming from. Alright, now. I could have sworn there's a thingy up here, right? Yeah, we're good. Doink. I think I was coming from this direction. Moving. See that one? There we go. Stick him on this. Small trap. Take that. Where the Harry am I? I'm supposed to be up here. Oh, wait a minute. That is a stupid piece of information. Alright, I don't want that. Boink, boink. That was stupid. Alright, now. This stupid thing. I was wondering why it looks so different. Alright, and let's move that one. Still producing? 14. Okay, so yeah, we're producing another resource, right? We're good. We're good. Golden, I might say. And your fingers touched my silent heart and showed me how. Yes, true love is a many splendid thing. Alright. I want to make sure the next thing I do is probably actually like so. Ooh. Wait, I didn't create the original. Alright. Crossbow. Nice. Ranged weapons. Heavy weapons. Damage against armored. 10%. Star repair. Spiked fist. Starwood crossbow. So they just need starwood planks for that stuff. Alright. That's the stupid thing. Like, they start out really quick, which is annoying as all get up, but then they turn into like this drip feed BS crap. Resource depleted. So it's still sending out stuff, but the resource is depleted. That's stupid. Production speed 65% negative. Yoink. Yoink. I feel like I could upgrade just one of these and be fine. Oh, alright, that's what I'm doing. Alright, 16 of that. And I don't have enough of that featherstone stuff yet. Do anything else with that? Repeating crossbow, that'd be cool. Categories, range. Interesting. Interesting. Ooh, spread bow. Alright, shift. Ow. My fingers hurt. Yeah, hello? No, I'm not. Alright. Alright, sounds good. Uh-huh. Yeah. Yeah, I'll leave you too. Now, is there anything else I'd want? It's fine. Fine, but I'd like to see if I can get what these things built. Possible. Ooh, expedition center. That'd be another handy thing to have. A little bit more starwood. Stick one right about. No, I want them on the corners. Out of the way. Not there. It's not yet, anyways. Let me get that figured out. Maybe about here. Stick one here. Unfortunately, I did not do is this bloody thing. Alright, like so. That'll do. Oh, dang it all. I can't upgrade, or can't put that thing where I want it. I'll upgrade one of these, though. Now I'll just start thinking about taking off here. You get stuff for having a bigger population. Benefits at next level. Production, resources, 20%, bonus upgrade points. Speaking of which, I should see. No, I need some other resources for that. See, I'm gonna guess at some point in the workshop, you get the ability. Hopefully they'll be fine up there. Down there. That work. Alright. Now, what were we about to pick? So I'm gonna guess at some point you might be able to start producing, like, different upgrade materials like diesel or something under this thing. Possibly. That would make sense-ish. And of course, stuff I do not have at the moment. Ooh. Hey. And our electric gets a little bit better. Every day I'm feeling better. Every day. Every day I'm feeling brighter. I feel alright. The sun is shining. Okay, that I want to get. So this takes quite a bit. I have to save up for that. This takes a little bit more of both of those. I want to start getting at that thing now. Timing. Alright. This is gonna have to be, it's gonna be expanded out. I assume there's some sort of limit to how big you can actually make your city. Oh, a floating device here-ish, but not quite there yet. Not quite there. I think I can get rid of quite a few of these flux things. I want to keep this stone cutter. Couple of these wood cutters. It'd be nice to have 2 stone cutters that are upgraded, though. We'll have to see about that. If I have another one around. I can feel it brighter. I can feel it better. Oh, blimey. It's gonna take this. Oh, featherstone. Good. Now, blast. It's all good-ish. Definitely get some flux going. North here. What the Harry is going on wherever it's going on? Hearing things attacking things. Oh. That's what's going on. Alright. That. MXL raid enemy numbers. Why not? I'm not really thinking this stuff through anyways. Now, just like actual politics. Okay, what? I'm missing a point there. There we go. That's good, right? I think we're good. Now, if I can just get the darn flux going. Start building some of these things I want to build. Namely, this. Look for one right here. So increase it by 50. Fortunately, they do take electricity and a part of the flux. At the moment, I think I can spare it. Almost there. Almost there. All right. Go on. Go, you. All right. 94, I think. Now, I think we could probably see these will be the next upgrade right here. I want to delete some of these. Actually, that's probably the last thing we want to delete before we take off. So, what else can we cut? probably delete this. Workshop level 3. What else is there? Oh, there's this thing. Until it's done with this one. If I ever, like, what are these? So that takes moonwood. I could probably start upgrading some of this stuff and doing some of that. Get rid of a couple of these. Alright. Yeah, good. What else? Like so. Like so. And almost there. Actually, I do want to build. I wonder if I can build one of these. Just not technically producing this stuff, but 13. Nah, let's just take off. All right, let's just take off already. I had wanted to. Alright, so I will move that thing. Just set it over here. Alright. That's Boogie. Like I said, I think at some point you get so you can probably produce diesel or fuel. At the moment, fuel cache ruins. Fuel cache ruins. That's 2 Sculler. There's this. Restless Dread. Chemical ruins. Production speed. Stonework production speed. Oh, that's unfortunate. Potatoes. Movement speed. Fuel cache. Chemical ruins. Desert. So either way, kind of get that one. The Cauldron. I don't have the Cauldron yet. Stable ground. I don't think I'm hurting for fuel yet. So probably good for a couple more. Cannabis collector. Master shards. Start. Up. Alright. Fuel. This is a global resource and does not require transportation. Alright. Cavitas. So I like one of the I think I want something with crystal. Alright. That's probably all we're gonna do for today though. That's probably all we're gonna do for today. Until this lands. Alright. Thanks for watching. Bye.